let's move now to the ripples of hope. And as we all remember, this was a tradition started by my predecessor, and it comes from an address that Robert Kennedy gave in South Africa in 1966. Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. So let's please start with our ripples of hope with Jeff Patterson. Jeff, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Patterson from the Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority in Cleveland, Ohio. I want to kind of talk about something that goes to some of the things that Sonia and others have said about the resiliency of housing authorities. You know, we were fortunate enough a little while ago to receive a choice planning grant. And when we decided to, when they put the implementation grant out, although we weren't fully ready, we still put in for an implementation grant. We were fortunate enough to be selected one of the 5 semifinalists, but at the end of the day, we weren't able to receive one of the actual grants. So I do congratulate my good friend Doug and the folks in Philly, Fort Worth, and Winston-Salem on getting those grants. But rather than just kind of sitting around and kicking and pouting, we were able to kind of get back in the game and put in a 9% tax credit application, which we were successful in doing, and also pull together a 4% tax credit application. So we're in a position now to be able to replace about 187 units of housing in our Woodhill development, and that's 40% of what we needed. So at the end of the day, you know, you may not get through the door that you want to get through, but if it's meant to be, you still can do the right thing and try to get people housing. So I wanted to mention that and say that that's a message to all of us to knock on as many doors as you can, and eventually somebody's going to let you in at least one. The other thing I wanted to say very briefly is, you know, we were one of the housing authorities that over the pandemic, we stayed open. We reduced our hours down to 4 hours a day, but we maintained a presence in our housing authority. And I just want to, you know, say, and I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. I just think it's important that we raise our staff up at this time. There are a lot of things that we're going through, a lot of people's minds, a lot of importance, especially self-importance and self-preservation. But it made me feel good to know that I had staff people who would come out and do whatever they could just to be a presence. And when you look at some of our seniors and some of the people we serve, they may not have seen the managers, they may not have talked to the managers, but just knowing that those managers were there in that building with them gave those folks a little extra comfort during this time of chaos. So I think to all the staff people throughout the country, I think the biggest ripple of hope is knowing that the housing folks stayed and were able to help people during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Tina, sadly, this may be your last ripple with this group, but we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. Tina Akers Brown, Greensboro Housing Authority in Greensboro, North Carolina. Just as many of you have over the past 3.5 months, we have spent our time trying to make sure that our staff and our residents are safe. In particular, today I'd like to talk about our seniors. We've done a number of things to ensure their safety, exactly what you all have done, limited their contact with the outside, made sure that the staff was safe, all the presenting the masks to them, the cleaning and all of that. But I think the most important thing, in the last 2 weeks, we've had COVID-19 testing in many of our communities, and at our 2 senior high rises, we were very, very pleased of the results that came out of the testing. In one of our high rises, we had 0, I said 0 cases. And I was quite shocked at that. And in another high rise, we only had 3. So we're really happy about the outcome of that testing. As Steve mentioned, today is my last CLPHA meeting. On Friday, it's my last day of working in the affordable housing industry. I have worked in the industry for 35 years at 2 different housing authorities, and it's never been dull. Always something exciting going on, whether you wanted it or not. So I've lived through all of that, and I'm glad to say that my next chapter will be spending more time with my family. If nothing else that I've learned from this pandemic, it's that I don't want to wake up one day and say that I had spent more time with my husband, who had had some health issues over the past year and a half. So I am going to be home to bother him. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tina. You leave an enormous legacy, and particularly the
Oh,
work.
wait, one more thing. I'd like
Okay.
to introduce my replacement, James Cox.
Hello.
Welcome.
James is the new CEO, and he's been the COO for a number of years now.
Glad.
Great to have you here.
Yep.
Tina, I would just be remiss if I didn't remark on your leadership role as an early adopter on RAD. So thank you for showing the rest of us the way as we
Thank you.
through the early bugs in that program. But
Yes.
you'll be very much missed. All the best. Godspeed.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I believe, is Helen Howell from KCHA. Helen, take it away.
Hi, I'm Helen Howell, and I lead the Social Impact Department at KCHA. Just wanted to mention briefly one of our meal programs. Like all of you, we've been very focused on responses to COVID-19. Actually, in this instance, Amazon approached us. They wanted to support one of their largest catering contractors, Gourmando, but couldn't use the services while working remotely. So they offered to redirect the contract to KCHA and SHA during the stay-at-home order, which at that point we assumed was going to be a month. Basically, we focused on public housing properties designated for seniors and people with disabilities. We served 25 sites, 1,700 residents, and we delivered prepared boxed double meals, actually 3 days a week. We had about a week to plan all the logistics and launched on March 25th. Basically, Gourmando delivered the used their refrigerated trucks to deliver the meals. And on each delivery day, we had about 25 staff volunteers who deployed to deliver door to door. The program continued for 2 months and wrapped up on June 1st. So knowing that the support was going to be short-term, we spent a lot of energy doing outreach to a wide variety of organizations to establish additional food partnerships. At this point, we have 5 partnerships in addition to on-site school meal service. We're providing some kind of food support, be it groceries, boxes, or prepared meals to over 3,000 households at this point. And I just closed by mentioning that another of our partners that actually approached us is the owner of a local restaurant who happens to be a former KCHA resident. He wanted to give back to the community that helped him when he first immigrated to the US. And he's serving Monday night dinners to approximately 200 on Mondays for the time being. We're not sure how long, but it's quite a story and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Helen.
Thanks.
Doug, you're up.
Yes, Doug Guthrie, the Los Angeles Housing Authority. Well, the chairwoman kind of stole my ripple of hope and did it far more eloquently than I could. And it's the distribution of masks that were provided by CLPHA in their partnership with United Healthcare. The chairwoman and I had just discussed this before this opportunity came up. It happened very quickly, and she was very excited to come out and help with the distribution. And just as important, I would say, as the distribution of the safety that brings to our residents and the need that our residents have for this was the fact that we were showing that we really care and that we're attempting to do all that we can to keep them safe and to keep them healthy. So there was a lot of very positive feedback from our residents in doing this. So we've distributed 25,000 masks to date to our public and assisted housing residents. We have an ask in for another 25,000 that we will be distributing to Section 8 recipients and taking to many of our permanent supportive housing developments that we've assisted in financing. So we're very excited about that. The second matter I wanted to bring up, and we mentioned this in the conversation with the chairwoman, this came together very quickly. We've been working for some time with a third party to bring testing, COVID-19 testing to our sites. And it had been slow in developing, and fortunately it came together very quickly. We now have a partnership with the City of Los Angeles and a nonprofit organization called CORE. CORE is a nonprofit many of you may be familiar with. It was founded by Sean Penn back during the earthquake in Haiti. And he's not only established it, he's expanded it, and it's in many of our own communities around the country. And so they've been partnering with the City of Los Angeles Fire Department to have drive-through and mobile centers for COVID testing. Now we've reached an agreement. They're going to be bringing it to all 15 of our major public housing sites over an 8-week period. We started it yesterday. We're getting very good responses from the residents. And very excited that we can bring this much needed health and safety issue to our sites and to our residents. So those are my 2 ripples for the day.
Thank you, Doug. I think those masks were deployed as strategically as one could ever hope. So Sue, you're up.
Okay, hi everyone. It's so nice to see everyone, even if it's just virtually. I have a ripple that I think is very appropriate for the themes that Stephen mentioned, which is that there's a lot of hope involved. Cambridge Housing Authority has a program called the Workforce Program that serves our middle school and high school kids with after school and in-school support. And what we were finding is that we were very good at getting them admitted to post-secondary education. Rates of acceptance were in the 90th percentile and even higher, but that the kids wouldn't really make it through once they left the high school and matriculated into those programs. So going back to 2016, we created a program of support for post-secondary kids that had graduated from our program and followed them through, and we've now gotten the concluding results following the 2016 graduates, and we found that 2/3 of those students finished their programs within the 4-year that you would project, and that we project that additionally will be up to 75 to 80% of that cohort will have completed it within 1 more year, which is really a tremendous improvement over the previous statistics. And it just shows that if you just put a little bit of extra effort into providing the kinds of supports that our residents and our students need, that they can be successful. And that is it.
Always good to hear what's going on up there. So I think Rashad from San Bernardino is next.
Yes, hi. Rashad Mitha, Director of Operations, County of San Bernardino Housing Authority. Our ripple of hope is regarding food as well, food distribution to our families. we realized at a very early stage in the pandemic that our seniors would potentially become food insecure with them being high risk and going out into the community to procure food items. So we partnered with the Department of Adult and Aging Services at the county, and we're able to provide weekly meals to our senior communities, which was greatly appreciated. And then really a ripple of hope was people on the outside really caring for our residents. So we were approached by a charter school program in our community, and that was had a bunch of extra meals in their supply chain that they were not able to distribute due to the closing of schools. So they wanted to reach out to us to see if they could give these meals to our families. And since we already had our seniors taken care of, we focused on our family sites. And we actually developed a drive-through meal pickup. Logistically, they just drive through our community. One of our larger communities is the anchor site, and they're able to pick up prepackaged meals by we just place them in their trunks. So there's minimum contact. It makes them feel safe. And we've only done it twice so far, but I'm happy to learn that we've already, in just 2 different events, we've been able to hand out over about 1,000 meals to our families. So the ability for, I mean, the hope that people are reaching out to us from the outside, and they think about our families and our low-income families and how they are even more affected by the pandemic has been a real ripple of hope for us. Thank you.
Sylvia Blanco, take it away.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm here at the Golden Gate Bridge here, and just wanted to say that I have a few ripples that I'm happy to share. One is, in the midst of this global pandemic, we were still able to successfully open a brand new redeveloped property, Pathways at Goodrich, under the RAD program. And so we were able to open up this beautiful, brand new, modernized property with 120 units that replaced 40 units of outdated and obsolete public housing. And I shared with Kirsten and Steve a very brief video snippet that maybe can be shared with the folks on the call later in some form or fashion. And it chronicles the move-in of the first family returning back to the redeveloped Goodrich place. So that was exciting to see. Also, I had shared on several CLPHA calls that Austin was tapped to administer a very short-term emergency rental assistance program, which we were able to successfully administer. So we were able to exceed expectations. We were shooting for about 1,000 families to be served in emergency rental assistance with about 1.3 million, and we were able to serve closer to 1,700 families for May rent and June rent. So that was very exciting to be a part of. We've done very similar things to other folks, other CLPHA members, such as standing up a resident support center to keep tabs on the health and well-being of our residents. We have also been doing some mass distribution to all of our properties. And we've also been doing some COVID testing. And I'll also share some good news. We did test at our largest senior high-rise, and we also had 0 positive results. Whew, that was a huge relief. And one last thing I wanted to share is, as most students experience throughout the country, a lot of our Austin ISD students have not been in a physical classroom since before spring break. And one of the things that was really weighing heavily on us and on our board is, what can we do to mitigate the effects of not only the typical summer slide, but now it's been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. And so just recently at our last board meeting, our board approved for us to offer a $250,000 challenge grant to our nonprofit youth partners to provide enhanced summer programming, whether it's through virtual summer camps, some type of maybe also socially distanced summer programs that will offer some activities-based programming to ensure that we are doing everything we can to mitigate the effects of this COVID exacerbated summer slide. So we're really excited about doing that. And again, we're calling it a challenge grant because we're bringing $250K to the table, and we want our partners to match that, whether it's through CARES Act funds or through other grant resources that they have available to them. So we're really excited about kicking that off very shortly. And that's what I have to share. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. That's quite a list. So, Michael, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Stephen. This is Michael Mira from the Tacoma Housing Authority, and I'm very pleased to report that we have opened phase 1 of our Arlington Drive campus for homeless youth and young adults. This will have a 12-bed crisis residential center for homeless 12 to 17-year-olds and a 58-unit apartment building for homeless 18 to 24-year-olds, 30% of whom we expect to be parents of babies and toddlers. This undertaking has really distilled the role of a housing authority in how do you house people who need more than housing. They need specialized services that at least THA does not know how to provide and doesn't want to learn. And the answer is you do this with first-rate service partners. And it distills what our role is. Our role is to provide the land, the money to get the thing built, the construction management expertise to build it, the property management capacity to run it as a property, the rental assistance to give it a cash flow, and what might be the most important contribution of all, because these young people don't get it from too many other places, which is a warm welcome. And last week, we welcomed our first 6 homeless 12 to 17-year-olds.
Thank you, Michael. Inspiring story. Okay. Take it away, Lachelle.
Hi, this is Lachelle Dozier from Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. We had a few ripples of hope. We are able to still continue to move forward on some of the efforts that started before the pandemic. And one of them was our motel conversion. We were working on a project in conjunction with Mercy Housing that we were able to open 92 units of homeless housing. It's our 7th motel conversion. And then in addition, we also have a motel conversion that we operated as a shelter, a temporary shelter until they received their tax credits. And so we are excited to find out that they were the highest ranked project and received their tax credits. So we'll be transitioning those residents out into permanent housing, and then it'll undergo construction and then turn into a new permanent supportive housing for 134 units. And then our last one is a 24-unit cabin community for transitional age youth. So we opened this 2 weeks ago, and we welcomed our first transitional age youth. And we're doing that and wrapping it around a robust partnership of resident service providers who do this work in Sacramento. So a lot of work still continuing in addition to all of the things that we're contending with under the pandemic.
Jerry, you're the cleanup batter here. There we
Hey,
are.
I want to say everybody, thank you very much for having this meeting. It's great to be back in contact with the thought leaders within our industry. I just have just a couple things real quick. We just finished our 8th 9% in the last 4 years. They just opened up earlier this year. One was a 18-story high-rise in downtown El Paso. It's mixed use. We have 100% of the space is leased out. So we have restaurants inside, office space, and we are currently leasing up and finishing up the elderly part of it, which is 120 elderly in the middle of downtown. And then we have 146 brand new 9% units that we just opened up for multifamily. And it looks like with the zombie properties that were created with a lot of the transition, as you know, we've done about 5,000 true gut rehab, 4,000 gut rehab, 1,500 new in the last 6 years. It's going to allow us to actually get to our ACC cap. So we're going to be able to actually get another 250 subsidized units into our portfolio, hopefully within the next 18 months. It looks very, very good for that. We are down on the RAD, just down to 600 units. We only have 600 units left to go to finish our full conversion. Right now, it's cost, and we've been able to raise about 1.3 billion, and everything's looking fantastic on finishing this whole thing up. And as we make this final push towards the end, I wanted to give a shout out to everybody working with my team, CLPHA, for putting together the leadership committee. As you know, we've been so focused on RAD that we haven't had a chance to circle back towards the residents other than the moving of over 5,000 families. And so now we're shifting that. And I just want to say thank you for everybody who's working with my team, with Maria Flores, to really work with the at-risk youth to give them opportunities to get into the universities. And so I just want to say you're all an inspiration. I've always looked at Tacoma with a jealous eye. I've always wanted to do a lot of what you've done up there. And with that, I'll just say thank you very much.